You mentioned a moment ago also about the Geraldine Dodge
Yeah.
Festival. What kind of experience was that?
I loved this was years ago and I loved it. It was conveniently located. Then they moved and it got more complicated to get there and their schedule got more complicated, so I haven't been for years now, but I really enjoyed it. They had different stages and side stages, so you could see some poet reading at any time. And I find it very, very inspirational.
Yeah, I was only at the Dodge once, and I think it was in was it the Waterloo Gap?
Yes, but then they've since changed.
Oh,
that
so
that
it's
one
not...
was easy to get to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It like it got more sophisticated or bigger or something.
Now, was that strictly for poetry, or was that for different types
That was
of writing?
I think that was just for poetry.
Just for poetry.
Yeah, it was just poetry. And it was like all day long, different poets reading differently. Yeah.
Your workshops that you've gone to, primarily poetry, or have you done a lot for other, for your fiction?
I've done mostly fiction. When I go to our workshops at the Philadelphia Writers Conference, I try to sit on the poetry workshops because that's my weak area. I really need to hone the poetry skills, but I can't always go because I might be assigned somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Now, is all your non-poetry writing, is it all fiction, or do you
Yes.
dive into other areas too?
Yes, it's all fiction.
You find you have to work harder at the poetry, though, than you do.
Yes, extremely so.
Yet for a lot of us, fiction would be such an undertaking. It's much more of a commitment to commit to a whole book-length project than it is to a
That's
poem.
what gets. I have some short stories, but that's what it is when you. Well, I get the beginning and then I know what the ending is going to be, but I don't know what's happening in the middle. But when you start it and you say, I have to do 70,000 words, and then you get to the middle, and they even have a term. They call it the sagging middle, because you're halfway through, but you still have the other half to do, and you're kind of sick of
That's
it.
where you, yeah.
So what you have to do, I think Glo de Lamar said, you look on it as a clock. First 15 minutes you're setting up. Second 15 minutes you go into detail. When you reach that halfway mark, you've got to do some kind of special, some kind of changing. In the cowboy movies where they throw in the chase.
Right.
And then I find myself when I'm watching an hour show on television, looking at the clock, so I can see if there's some complication getting ready to come in or if they're getting ready to wind it down. Now, if they're at the halfway mark, some stuff is going to happen. But if they're like 15 minutes out, then they're going to stuff is going to reach the climax, and then the last 15 minutes you're going to kind of wrap up. But I find myself looking at the clock, watching.
So you can see
Yeah.
the process and the structure of the show.
Right.
You have insight. That's interesting.
You will too, see now. Next time you watch something for a show,
I will be watching for that.
you'll look at the clock.
When does the climax come? After the sagging middle?
Yes. It picks up. The pace picks up there. You might throw in some complications. You might start to pull the loose ends together because the final 15 minutes you're just wrapping it up. You might be answering some questions. Although one of the books, somebody told me I have to go back. She just read it. She told me I have to go back because she was looking for the story from one of the secondary characters, and I didn't develop the secondary character's story, so I have to write a sequel to it, she told me.
Do you think she's right?
I told her I would have to read it. This is, I think, about the fourth book. I've got to read this book to see what she's talking about. But no, you get that kind of feedback from people if they really like a character, and it's not the main character. They want more about that character. So they'll want you to give them their own story.
I've dabbled in short stories years ago, didn't work out for me. I found it too difficult. But one of the things I was aware of was character development,
Yeah.
and I found that very difficult. How do you deal with character development? What kind of goes through your mind when you're developing a character?
Well, the characters, I usually start with, I might have a situation, like I told you, the situation here, but then the characters kind of develop, it has to be a character that could only fit in that setting. And, after a while, you'll get to know the characters and you'll start to do something. You said, no, she wouldn't do that, or he wouldn't do that. So, they're real people. It's like they're real people, and you're telling the story, and you have to be consistent unless the character is not consistent. If the character is a flake, then that has to show up. But you have to know the character, and they do talk to you, Steve. You got people in your head talking to you. And you could probably walk down the street and talk to them because people think you're on the phone.
Yeah, you can get away with that.
Yeah. Now they think you're on the phone. They don't realize it's in your head.
Another thing that I found difficult too was making the characters talk like how they would sound. After a while, I would find it, character A sounds exactly like character B.
You don't want that.
How do I
You
divide that and give them their individual, unique voice?
Well, I think you know them. Some authors do character sketches. They actually do a page or so of the character with all of the background and everything. But I don't do. I start with the character, and then gradually the character unfolds. As I said, they tell me their story. Very seldom will I get to where no, she wouldn't do that or he wouldn't do that. And sometimes, they're doing something and you're telling them that's stupid. You're going to be sorry because again, that's another one of those voices in your head. But yeah, I haven't had trouble developing. I might get an idea for a story, but the very next thing I get are the characters. How are the characters going to fit into that story? My 2 Border Patrol books, Texas-Mexican border. Well, since they're on the border, I had to have border agents.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them have some problems, and I mean serious problems, that they had to deal with. So, it's like realistic. I try to be realistic, give them the same problems that regular people have.